guys, and welcome to another Factorio Friday Facts number 326, sorry, particle emitter and data cache. And unfortunately, I am not joined again by Bombug. He did get here moved in safe and stuff, which is great, but does not have internet yet. So that's obviously a problem for us doing this. But hopefully next week he will have that set up and we will be good to go. So this one is kind of technical, but it's pretty easy to summarize. Thank God, seeing as I'm not the technical of the two of us, as you know. So we'll just kind of go through this. It's really good stuff. So more particle optimizations. I talked about this in a couple Friday Facts ago about the particle optimizations our seeding did for particles in regards to like bugs dying and explosions and stuff like that. So yeah, basically, our seeding's recent optimizations made particles much more lightweight than they were before, but it still left particles as rather complex beasts. A quick summary of the possible actions a particle can make during its update are move their own position, advance their animation to another frame, land in water and apply a trigger, apply another trigger with a certain frequency, remove themselves from the game world once their life ends. But basically what makes it complex is that they're general purpose systems that can do all kind of things. So basically applying a trigger is an anything can happen situation and thus totally unpredictable, which makes it hard to optimize. The particle emitter. So that's what the main part of this article is about. So that's just particles and particle systems. But the particle emitter, the base game, most mods don't use particularly crazy triggers when creating particles. The goal is usually just to spawn in a bunch of small animated textures and make them fly around on screen, which is somewhat ironically what is usually called particle. The idea for more optimizations particles was hence to create a kind of simple particle which couldn't apply all kinds of triggers to allow handling them in bulk, which is usually faster than handling them individually. So it's kind of just like a bulk trigger for particles. The bulk handling would be done by a particle emitter, whose whole job is to create, update, draw, and finally destroy the simple particles it manages, with the idea being that a biter dying wouldn't have to spawn hundreds of particles, but only a single/few emitters, which makes sense. But that's not all. In addition, simple particles are not able to change any other game state and would thus only get updated to maintain their own internal values, mainly their position and velocity. Small physics exercise later, the idea was born to not update the particles at all. You can compute their current position from their starting one after all. Even better, if the particles aren't even rendered, then there's no point in creating them in the first place. So there's no reason to do that until the emitter comes into dry distance, millions of biters dying in a gigantic blood fountain. Sounds great. Off screen would thus basically not matter at all for your frames and update time, right? Because it's not on your screen, so they don't even need to spawn the particles or anything like that. So here's an example. This is like your screen, this red box. Visualization, the emitter, the red box represents your actual screen. Particles managed by emitters outside the screen region simply don't exist. As you can see, only these assemblers within this box are actually like sending particles. They all have explosions, but watching one more time, you'll notice that these 5 in here are the only ones that actually send out like shrapnel and stuff. The particles themselves not being allowed to affect game state has another benefit. In multiplayer games, each player only has to generate the particles they see themselves instead of those that are visible by anyone, which obviously that's really great because you could have people spread everywhere, and it could be a lot if you're doing them for everyone. It also suggests not using the emitter's update function, but as draw one instead, which yields even more benefits to the draw function being called during the render prepare phase, which runs on many threads as you're allowed to have, which is awesome. Most people will have multiple threads, CPUs, so that'll help. But basically, it doesn't all magically happen correctly. There's always edge cases, like what happens if it's created off screen and then comes into view, or what happens if you save and reload, stuff like that. It'd be odd to see a rocket silo explode in uncountable bits, see how they fly and crash in the ground, then save and reload and see everything again because of particle effect restarting. But handling these kind of issues took a lot of time and only increased the system internal complexity marginally, allowing him to focus on expanding its features. Currently, the following things are supported by present on an emitter. Supported to be present, sorry, on an emitter. Handling simple particles with individual random starting positions of velocities. Handling simple particles via particle streams via normal and instant tails, as shown in 325, which was last Friday Facts, I believe, right? Yeah. And then handling simple particles with a smoke trail behind them. Has some examples of this, the Friday Facts, but the fact already existed beforehand. Handling simple particles impacting the ground by potentially being replaced with water splash when hitting water. So these are all the things it currently supports, but there's two main restrictions. The first one being they only handle a single particle type and technically associated smoke and water splashes, making like an assembly machine bursts into metallic blobs and oil splashes would require two emitters. So on and so forth, up from there for multiple different kinds. And the particles managed by an emitter cannot fly too far away from the emitter because they need to basically know how far outside the draw distance to search for emitters. So here's another example. With a demo particle animation showing off all effects at once, all these are managed by a single emitter. So this is a lot of effects, but it's only requiring one emitter to do this. Now, this particular, I know this is just an example, but I still find it very comical, as in the, was it last Friday Facts? This is an ungodly amount of, like, this is like, this guy just ate, like, 100 pounds worth of C4 and it exploded amount of blood. And the size of these splashes on the water, oh my lord, I hope this is not a thing in the game, in the actual game. Because this is like really overwhelming, dude. Like, this looks like you just like threw a bunch of grenades in the water, man, not some like little blood splatter. I know this is just an example and it's just meant to show the thing, but I just find it's really funny that it's like freaking bomb went off in the ocean when this blood spatter hits it. I do really like this exploding animation and the fact it only requires one emitter, which is great. So overall, big optimizations with this system, which is really good. Especially like particularly multiplayer games, as I mentioned. Really just kind of tuning it the finest they can to make it the most efficient as possible. Speaking of efficiency, we hear from our seating again. And by the way, this was written by Allison, I think. I never know how to pronounce that correctly, but he's been working on this. This next part, our seating, of course, our seating optimizing things. That's what he does mostly. Very, very good at it. So this is all in regards to the game startup time. Time to reach the main menu, basically, from when you launch the game. It's just as important to them as compile time. See, a long Friday Facts ago, with how frequently we compile and launch the game to test things, every extra bit of time spent waiting for the game to load is wasted time. So there's basically two main parts of the Factorio startup process. Go over each enabled mod and collect the prototype data it defines generates, the data stage, and load and process the sprites that the game needs to run. As you can see, this is a familiar sight to those who play with a lot of mods. Loading Farrell, Bob's AI, blah, blah, blah. It takes frickin' forever. If you play with multiple mods, you know this. In the past, we made an experimental setting which would cache the loading and processing of sprites, so we never need to wait for it when nothing around them has changed. However, the game still had to process all of the data stored every time the game would start. That's this stage with the mods and stuff. So during normal development, that wasn't really an issue. It happened in a fraction of a second in most cases. However, as the game has grown, so has the amount of stuff that gets processed during the data stage. Additionally, for every mod that's enabled that has anything in this stage, the time would roughly double, which is insane. Recently, kind of like bot research, huh? Recently, I started to wonder what it would take to make the same kind of caching system we have for the sprite loading for the data stage. Since mostly the results are the same between restarts, it would mean it didn't need to do most of the work and should be faster. After working on it for about a day, I had a working prototype, but it wasn't actually any faster with just the base game. Kind of makes sense. I think a lot of the time is spent with the mods that need this. So not wanting to quit just yet, I spent some time with the profile. I managed to find a few areas that I could optimize and reduce the time to caching. The logic was spinning by about half, so it finally had some benefit for the game, although quite small. which is interesting. He reduces by half, but it's quite small. Maybe in the grand scheme of things, it's small. However, what he didn't expect was just how much of an improvement it was going to have for the modded case. What used to take 25 seconds in my testing took only 4 seconds. That is massive. That's just like a sixth of the time with the new cache setting enabled. Time saving gets even better as the number of enabled mods increases. The setting is still disabled by default because it's highly experimental, but it ends up stable enough we might turn it on by default. I don't know when this is making it in. I guess 0.18, because it seems like they may be done with 0.17 branches, but or maybe they can sneak one in, because I think this is a really great thing, even though it would be off by default. If you play with a lot of mods, or even if you play with a couple mods, I feel like this is I mean, that's a huge, like, massive reduction in time. 25 seconds to 4 seconds. That's like, I mean, that's basically the difference between like going to get a drink and stuff, which, I mean, of course you need to drink fluids, but like some waits are so long, you literally could just like go to the bathroom and get a snack while the game loads. So this is really good, you know, just sucking people further into the game because they don't have time to get up. Good job, our seating. And lastly, cloning with some shout out to Christmas mods. This is Friday Facts before Christmas. Alien biomes, snowy terrain is just beautiful. In the map gen settings, you can crank up the cold climates options so your whole world is just a cozy winter wonderland. It's quite nice. Holiday artillery, this is by far my favorite. Maybe I'll spotlight this coming Wednesday. I don't have a mod lined up to spotlight, I don't think. We must also remember to share the love to our biter friends, and Wednesday's actually Christmas, so that would be perfect. This mod lets you deliver gifts far and wide and embellishes the gift delivery turret wagon with a lovely red and green paint job. This is freaking awesome, man, and it's oh my god, it's so good. It's actually, and this is actually shooting the present, and then it just explodes. This is like, I absolutely love this. No, these need to be presents. Fail. No, I'm kidding. I mean, technically they should be, but I see how that would be extremely difficult. But this is just fantastic. I love this so much. Christmas tree. And of course, no Winter Factory is complete without a lovely Christmas tree. I'm gonna like sound blasted here. I don't dare listen to that music. I don't want copyright junk. And it has gears. And that, okay. But it's really cool. So these are hyperlinks, the actual title for each section of this. If you want to check them out, most of you probably already know alien biomes. This one is great. Maybe I'll grab this for like, oh, I don't have artillery yet. Never mind. I was gonna say maybe I'll grab for my Monday Death World stream. I'm not even close to artillery. What are we talking about? But this is fantastic. Anyway, that's gonna do it for this Friday Facts, guys. Hopefully next week Bombug will be with us again. I summarized part of it. Basically, pretty big optimizations with the particle system, just changing a little bit how it works. Really good. Got some insane water explosions here. Maybe the biter's blood like weighs way more than ours, so like each like spec is like 100 pounds or something. And then the startup time is I mean, that's fantastic. Because it does take quite a while to load stuff. So I think that's gonna do it. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Since this is the last Friday Facts before Christmas, this is the last Friday Facts video before Christmas. I will obviously be doing videos, and streams before Christmas after this. But for anyone who may not watch those, hope you have a great Christmas. If you celebrate it, great holidays. And I look forward to next Friday Facts after everyone has done their celebrations of whatever they do celebrate, if they do. Anyway, take care, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Leave your thoughts, questions below on Reddit and on the forums. Happy holidays, and until next time, I look forward to seeing you all, and do take care.